Crazy things are happening. And one of the biggest things when it comes to Tesla is the question, what happens in April? When Cybercab goes into production, there's a lot of discussions. And I have covered that here on the channel like no one else. Even though we have very smart defense people out there from CERN Basher who has issued amazing models and covered this, to, of course, the great Herbert, Jeff Lutz, and all the great Tesla tubers and cyberbulls who have covered that. And of course, Nick, not to forget. But here's a new development that I want to cover. So the great Chamath Palihapitiya, the man who made me a lot of money because he actually helped me understand Bitcoin a long time ago at an HBS meeting. That was very interesting when we met first. I think in 2013 or something, I bought Ethereum for $11 because of Chamath, even though he just talked about Bitcoin. But anyway, so I'm kind of a personal Chamath fan because he helped me. And Chamath is, putting out this interesting thing where he comments on robotaxi or Cybercab, and that he would totally buy and deploy large fleets around the country when possible. Should pay back and be positive free cash flow in less than 2 years. So why is it so important? Because you know that Chamath is an important dude. He's smart. He's a smart investor, knows a lot. And he's close to Elon, close to Trump and all these guys. So why is that so interesting? Because what I described is that I'm betting on Tesla potentially hitting a very important repricing and inflection point in April or May, let's say May, end of April, May, because Cybercab is coming online. And we have a lot of arguments here, very good arguments. Ask Jeff Lutz about it, who's one of the leading specialists when it comes to supply chains and manufacturing. And when you talk to Jeff and other people who know these kinds of things, you know that you're not randomly launching and bringing online a manufacturing line of that scale without having complete confidence that you can sell these things. So I always outlined, how can Tesla be so confident that they're actually investing billions, $4 billion into that line and getting it online this April, which is in less than 4 weeks or maybe 7 weeks if it's end of April. And Cybercab goes online and we see that they're producing these things. And my rationale was, well, these things don't have a steering wheel. So what are they going to do with it if FSD is not ready? And FSD is, if it's ready, and you can deploy these things and actually bring them online and make them commercial, well, that's a very big deal. That is the great repricing of the stock. And I'm a little puzzled by my own reasoning because on the one side, it's a first principle, so I have to be right. It is obvious that Tesla cannot delay the manufacturing start without creating a giant financial hole for themselves. And they're not dummies, they're not going to do that. So they have some confidence that they can scale. And sure, it can be painfully slow, as Elon says, but that means 30,000 Cybercabs in 2026. 30,000 this year. That would be the most painfully slow scale. But what are you going to do with 30,000 Cybercabs if you can't use them? So here's the interesting thing. So I was thinking about, I also think Fazard is clearly wrong on the great steering wheel debate. They're not going to sell this to consumers as a car you can drive. So I'm in this predicament. Am I just right that FSD will be totally ready end of April and they can just roll them out and scale robotaxi into the tens of thousands this year? Maybe end of the year. But my gut feeling right now is, when I look at the robotaxi tracker, when I look at where we are at, it doesn't seem likely that we are ready in April, like now, to actually go into a scaled commercial operation of robotaxi. And so Chamath's post is actually very interesting because Elon also hinted at that. What if Fazard is half right and Tesla will actually sell the Cybercabs to consumers, but not to drive them themselves, but to build their own fleet, kind of pre-sell them, maybe even deliver them before they can be deployed? Because Tesla, you have to view it like this. If you have a manufacturing line like this live, you need to manufacture them, you need to produce them, and you need to deploy them somehow or sell them. And I was looking for what is a potential hedge for Tesla if robotaxi is not ready to totally go into scale in May or June, which I think it's like just not likely. It doesn't look like it right now. Maybe they can really ramp it up and maybe they can actually deploy unsupervised robotaxis in the hundreds by May. But in the thousands, I'm not sure, to be totally honest. I think they need to be very cautious. If they decide to actually deliver robotaxis or cybercabs to people, they could sell 1 million of these things, no problem. I think people are absolutely salivating over them. And the fact that someone like Chamath is also posting this means this is a good business. Of course, I did ran some of the numbers, but I didn't do a deep dive. But a lot of people say this is a good business, it's great. Brian Wang, for example, also a very smart analyst, they're all saying this is a great business you want to be in. And so people would buy them, even if they're sitting on the cybercabs for, let's say, 6 months before full deployment. Because for private owners, that's not a problem. You can buy these things. You can take delivery, and between 6 and 1 month, having it sit in your parking lot, no problem. Much less of a problem than for Tesla sitting on thousands of them. So that could be a very good risk mitigation thing where Tesla says, well, we can easily manufacture 30,000 this year or 40,000 this year. And if you front load this too much, if you manufacture 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000 in the first 3 months and cannot deploy them, we can sell them to people. So it's an interesting buffer. And you might think, Joe, who even cares about these small numbers? It matters a lot when you run the numbers. It damages Tesla if they cannot deploy them and have to manufacture them. They're piling up thousands of these things. So that is the case. That would be beautiful also for the stock because it relieves the pressure, right? Because it means if you then scale unsupervised to many dozens in April, maybe 100 in May, 200 in June, 300 in July, everyone will be happy if you at the same time sell thousands to people like Chamath and everyone else. Because then Wall Street says, fine. So maybe the scaling is a little slower, but it keeps accelerating. It keeps doubling every month or something. A little delayed from what Elon was promising, but maybe it goes from 8 to 16 to 32 and so on. So it goes to a few thousand end of the year, which is much more doable than tens of thousands. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But now we would have a relief valve. We would have a relief valve that actually calms the share price not down, it calms it up. So I like the idea more and more. And the fact that this is floating more and more on X is very interesting because you have to view it like that. As long as Tesla can sell these things, everything is fine. As long as they can just ramp it to 30,000 this year and not sit on them, I'm very happy. So I do think reality is always not so black and white. I think I was probably half right with my inflection point, but probably not completely right. Very important to bet on the right inflection point. I do not think at this point that my prediction that we will have 1,800 unsupervised, fully commercial robotaxis in April or May, I don't think at this point that is possible anymore. So I have to retract that. But at the same time, my prediction that the repricing will start and that they will actually deliver cybercabs at scale might still be true. So my reasoning was sound if they start selling it to consumers or whatever you call these people, to investors. So very interesting. If that happens, what happens to the stock? Well, it might not be the brutal repricing that I would see at 1,800 and then doubling for truly unsupervised robotaxis, but it would impact the stock very strongly. So I think it would be extremely bullish for the stock. Not the forcing function I was looking for that drives the stock towards 1,000, but something that can drive it very rapidly towards 600. And then, of course, at some point, the unsupervised deployment at scale happens, probably this year. Interesting times. I will observe this very closely because it's important for me. I'm generating Pioneer Alpha, as you know, always sitting on top of Tesla and understanding when this stock moves. Obviously, we will also talk about Iran again. We have to talk about macro because independent of the individual drivers for Tesla in the next few weeks and maybe months, the question when that war ends is very, very important because right now the Nasdaq, Max 7, including Tesla, but also NVDA, also Bitcoin, they're a coiled spring just waiting for that war to end. And so betting on that end of the war is probably short-term the biggest alpha generator. But Robotaxi, always keep an eye out. So that's why I wanted to cover this today. I hope that was interesting. See you tomorrow.